This is an automatic dirt bike made in the USA by Rokon. Now, Rokon is known mostly for their two-wheel drive trailbreaker bikes. They made those from the late 50s to late 70s, but it is not as known that they made full-size enduro and motocross bikes from about 71 till about 77, this being one of them. This is an enduro model called a RT 340 with a 340cc snowmobile two-stroke engine with a automatic drive. So it has a variable clutch on this side, allowing for any gear ratio you want, having no shifter, just gas and go. Now this bike has a lot of weird attributes, even for a bike made in the 70s. For one, it is that big giant two-stroke engine and of course automatic drive, but it also has full magnesium wheels, spokeless wheels of course, and it also has disc brakes front and back. It also has a full enduro package up here, so you have your speedometer with a trip meter, this magnifying glass which you would put a clock in to run your time, and a route sheet holder to put the route sheet for each individual enduro course. You see it has the big giant belt drive on this side, regular plastic fenders. They tried to make this bike as light as they can with the magnesium wheels, the aluminum engine, plastic fenders. They have a fiberglass tank, but that didn't really help. These bikes are still very heavy, and that's why they didn't really sell a lot of them. And they were very expensive back in the day. But we're going to go ahead and hit these wheels with some degreasers, hit the engine a little bit, try and get all this dust and grime off of there, get it on the stand, and see if we can get it running. All right, so we got hosed off, hit with some light degreaser. Already looks a lot better already, but we're going to go ahead, pull this tank, pull this seat off, get to the carb and the spark plug, see if we got spark and compression. We'll kind of go from there. Before I pull that tank and seat, I'm going to walk over a couple of other cool attributes about this bike. I actually got it from a guy that owned an original Rokon dealer here where I live. He was able to hold on to it all these years. This bike actually has a couple of kind of rare options that you don't see a whole lot on these Rokons that are still around. This one, for one, still has the original toolkit right there. Fortunately, there aren't any tools left in it, but that is the original bag. And then it also has this spark arrestor on here. Now, the way Rokon sold these is on the original exhaust over here. The original exhaust was cut off right here. This is the actual spark arrestor, and this was an option you could get from Rokon. They would actually just take it, put it on the end of the muffler here, weld it on, and that was it. It wasn't bolt on like most of the other manufacturers, which makes it just a little odd and a pretty rare option. Another pretty rare thing about this bike is it actually still has the title, so I could make this bike street legal if I wanted to, which you really don't see on these old Rokons. But either way, we're going to go ahead, get this stuff pulled off, and see what we can find. Kind of surprised. Still a metal seat pan on this bike. I would have figured they'd go with a plastic or a fiberglass one to try and keep the weight down, but obviously not a priority back then on this bike. And it was probably different on the motocross bike that they made, for example, but definitely not this one. Fiberglass tank. Looks to be in real good shape. A lot of these, they'd wear back here at the tank over time and start leaking or anywhere along the sides, but this one still looks pretty good. A lot of dirt and mud on the bottom, but that's easily fixable. Oh, that one's tight. That is not good. Alright. That is not wanting to budge, so I'm going to spray some penetrating oil around that. Probably let it sit for a while, and hopefully that loosens up, because right now that is incredibly tight. Give it another shot. There we go. Awesome. Got lucky on that one. I've had a bunch of plugs that are bikes like this that have been there since the beginning of time that don't want to come out. So plug looks real good. We'll definitely replace it though. And there looks good. Awesome. Whenever I get a bike like this that's been sitting for who knows how long, I always take a little bit of Marvel Mystery Oil and squirt it down in the cylinder just to keep everything lubricated, get some oil on those rings, on any of the seals, that kind of thing. Now luckily this bike does turn over and it has really good compression. It's going to be a bear to start once we do get everything in working order, but at least it turns over. So let's go ahead and hook this plug up, see if we got spark. No kill switch, just a kill switch on this bike. No way. Awesome. So we got a real bright spark, so that means we don't have to go into these points at all. We can just hopefully put a new plug in it, and we'll take this carb off, go through it, get some fresh gas in this tank, and hopefully we can go for a test ride. Alright, so to get this carb out, doesn't look like it's going to be too big of a deal. Just looks like it's all mounted in rubber. I'm going to be careful with this boot up here. It's got some cracking in it, but hopefully it'll be okay if I'm real careful getting it out. Maybe I'll put a little bit of heat on it, something like that. Luckily this rear boot is still nice and soft, so shouldn't have a problem with that. Slide's still free and it's not stuck, so hopefully this will be a real easy clean. And the guy I got it from, like I said, he owned the dealership, so he kind of knew what he was doing. He put, non-ethanol gas, that kind of thing. And he might have even drained the gas out of it. I was looking at this down frame right here. This is a really long bike, if you haven't noticed. And you can tell the tank right there too. It's a really, really long bike. I mean, when you sit on the seat back here, it feels like you're stretched out across the bike trying to get to the bars. Alright, so doesn't look like we have a air filter. It's just a mesh screen. Not sure what it would have had originally. Maybe, probably wasn't much. If I had to guess, I doubt it had a foam filter. But we'll go ahead and vacuum all that out of there before we try and do any kind of running. But let's go ahead and set this up and see if we can get this carb out. Hopefully it'll be a little bit easier than my Ranger over here. So this is actually the two-wheel drive bike right here, and these bikes actually use it's a 125 or 140 Chrysler engine, and it has a diaphragm carb on it. And those carbs right there are not easy to get out. Bike super fun to ride. Two-wheel drive, has the shaft up here that goes to the gearbox and then back down to a chain drive on the other side. And this one's actually got the hollow wheels, and it's got a cap right there, so you can take that cap off and fill it with gas, oil, water. At least that's what they advertised them for. This one actually has a 3-speed transmission right here. It's a fun bike to ride, but yeah, not fun to work on. Hopefully, I think this bike's a lot easier to work on, but we'll find out when we start taking this carb out. Alright, got the carb off, and that was probably the easiest carb removal I have ever done on any bike. I just undid both the clamps. I could slide the rear boot off and just pop it out. Super simple. I wish that every bike was that easy. Unfortunately, they aren't, but that's usually what you get with vintage bikes. So let's go ahead and crack it open and see what kind of surprises we got waiting for us. Big carburetor, but I guess 340cc engine, it probably needs it. not bad at all. We got the individual floats on the Koonie. You don't see that set up on too many of these old carbs. You can tell this bike hadn't been apart that many times. Still has the little rubber stoppers on the end there. Those always disappear. Still has the bowl there. Definitely gonna need some ungummifying. You see all that two-stroke oil residue in there, but definitely not bad comparatively. I see a lot of guys that don't remove the seats for the needles when they tear these carbs down. I always do that. I had one bike, it was a KX80 that I took down. Carb looked great, put it back together and rode it, and it would, shut off like I wasn't getting gas. So I had a little piece of trash stuck down in there that I didn't get to whenever I disassembled it. So now I always take it down. It's easy. Doesn't take any longer. There's the emulsion tube. You gotta be real careful. These Makoonies, the little brass piece will bend so easy. Took me a while to figure out the best way to get them out. Let's see. Alright, so I believe that's everything. So we're going to hose it off, clean it off, spray it off, and get to all the little components here. Alright, so we got pretty much everything cleaned back up here. Got all that old gas residue out of there. Now it's just a matter of putting everything back together. Just going to polish out this needle seat real quick. And the best way to do that is take a tiny piece of Scotch-Brite, stick it down in there, flathead screwdriver, just spin it. Of course, you want to make sure that that Scotch-Brite is between the screwdriver and the seat, or else it'll scratch it. But if you do it right, just go back and forth a few times, twisting it left and right, and then you can grab it and pick it back out of there. Just going to do a bench test to make sure our valve is opening and closing real quick. Perfect. No leaks. Everything feels nice and tight, so go ahead and put this back on the bike. Alright, so we got the carb all clean. Everything turned out real good there. But before I put it back on, I'm going to go ahead and take a little vacuum and get all the debris out of here. Try and blow it out of here. Make sure we stop this up. Make sure we don't get any debris in there. But go ahead and clean all that up. Then I'm going to try and turn this hose right here. As you can see, it's kinked right there. So I'm going to try and turn it 180 so that that gets pushed back out. And hopefully we can get rid of that little bubble right there. I don't know if anybody's used one of these before. It's just a little shop vacuum, but plugs into the air hose and just cycles the air backwards to suck anything out and into this bag right here. Super handy to have around the shop. You don't have to lug around a huge vacuum. Makes it real easy to get into places like this. good job getting in those tight spaces without having to have a big vacuum cleaner, something like that, to have to try and hook up and fish down there. So definitely one of my favorite tools to use, and especially on working on bikes like this that, you know, had rats living in them. Who knows what else. Take this to the sink, try and wash it out, try and get some of that debris and whatnot, all that dirt out of there, and may try and heat this up to where it'll kind of form back into shape real quick. All right, got this boot all cleaned up now, all the debris and whatnot out of there. Got the air box all clean as well, so I shouldn't have to worry about anything else. So we're gonna go ahead and pop this back on here. That was a little bit of a chore, just getting everything lined back up there. Make sure I didn't have any kinks in it, but now everything is lined up nice and straight. So now I'm gonna put the filter back in, put the tank on, put some gas in it, and see how many pulls it'll take to get this thing to run. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and stick the air filter cage back in there. Later I'm gonna put just a makeshift foam filter around it, but for now, just put cage back in there so it doesn't hurt anything. And of course, it'll be a little bit better than having nothing in there. All right, we're gonna go ahead and stick my gas tank back on. I'm not gonna bolt anything down right now. I'm gonna go ahead and get on my plumbing run with some new lines, new filter, put some gas in it. So got all of our plumbing run here. I'm gonna go grab some fuel, pour it in there, make sure that our petcock is still good. See if that's enough fuel. All right, we got fuel flow. So I'm gonna go ahead, lower the bike down on the stand. All right, guys, got the bike down, got everything ready. Go ahead and drop in the comments how many pulls you think before we can see some life out of this bike. I'm guessing maybe 3. And then something I didn't explain earlier, you probably noticed that the chain is off the bike up here, and this is something I think is kind of funny about these old Rokons, is you almost had to take the chain off of these bikes to be able to roll them halfway decent. Because of that belt drive over there, there's so much friction, they're just, I mean, it feels like you're pushing the bike in gear pretty much. But I'm gonna go ahead, set this up, and see if, hopefully this thing doesn't rip pull cord out of my hand. That would not feel nice. Got a little leak coming off of my petcock there. Nothing really to worry about there yet, but I can't believe that thing started, what was that, second pull? I had the enricher on. I mean, that thing was a lot easier to start than I thought it was going to be. Still got to hook the chain up. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'll pop the seat back on real quick and take this thing for a test drive. I'm really excited to try and ride this bike, see how it feels. I feel like it's going to be real heavy and really awkward, but seemed to run really nice, real smooth. I didn't hear anything bad coming from the engine. It was idling nice and smooth. I didn't get my headlight or the taillight to come on. So we've got something going on wiring wise or switch wise. I did notice I got a wire cut down here. I don't know if that might be it, but we're off to a really good start here. So I'm gonna go ahead, slap that chain back on, slap that seat on, and we're gonna take this thing for a test drive. Got it back outside, got the chain put back on it, got some more gas in it. Gonna go ahead and take it for a test ride. Man, that thing is a lot faster than I thought it'd be, but that is a fun bike to ride. Man, cool. So that about wraps it up for this Will It Run video. I'm gonna do a few more things to this bike, probably clean up the plastics a little bit. Got some new decals for the tank. I'm gonna go through, do a couple other things, but this is gonna be a fun bike. But hey, I appreciate y'all watching. Please like, subscribe, follow, and we'll see y'all in the next video.